Alright, we're going to clean the Ruger SR22 today. This is one of the guns that I introduce a lot of students to when they're first learning how to shoot. So it gets a lot of use, so I have to do a lot of cleaning to it. So we're going to get it clean. The first thing I'm going to do is remove my O-light laser light combo, pull it off there. Now we're going to disassemble the Ruger. So basically we're just going to drop this down, push that forward, push back, just like that. So basically what we did is we dropped our little lever down here. I pulled the slide back, pulled up, pulled off. Now if you saw the slide and the recoil spring and rod came out. So I'll set the spring and rod there, I'll set the slide there. They're ready to be cleaned. Here is the frame. Now this is an attached barrel to the frame. This does not remove, and we're going to clean it. So I'm going to get my little bucket. I'm going to get my Birchwood Casey gun scrubber right there, and then we're going to spray. I'm going to spray a little bit on. Now I'm going to take me a little toothbrush over here, and I'm going to help loosen up some of this stuff. Now the spray would probably get it off just by really hitting it with the spray, but to save some spray, because you have to pay for that, and elbow grease is free, so I'm going to elbow grease it with the brush. And then I'm going to spray the rest, and it should come off pretty freely, and it is. You can actually tell that it just washed right off at that point. Got a little bit back here that I missed. And this is basically what we're going to do. We're just going to keep doing this until it really comes clean. And it doesn't take long. I keep this gun, it gets a lot of use, but I keep it fairly clean. Now we're going to clean the barrel. So to clean the barrel, I'm going to sit it right there. Get that in the shot. So it's just sitting down so all of it can drain down. But to clean the barrel, we're going to take our hops, clean down the bore of the barrel. We're going to take, I use nylon brushes. Your kit probably comes with brass, and that's fine. I just prefer nylon. Less chance of scratching the barrel. So I use nylon, and then you're going to want to use your little T-handle, and then we're going to send it down in there. But the way I do it is I'm going to take my, this is hops number 9, and I'll show you, I'll put the top back on and show you what the front end looks like in a second. So what I do, now this one's really hard to go this way because you've got stuff right there. So I'm going to go down the front of the barrel. I'm going to dip it in my hops. It's going to go kind of tight the first time, but then I'm going to dip it in my hops again. Dipping it back in the hops does a couple things. It gets you some more solvent, plus it kind of washes your brush off, and all that will settle down at the bottom. And that's going really freely, so I know it's good to go now, so I don't have to send that down anymore. Now I'm going to take my bore snake. You can get these at the store, and it's in your caliber. I'm going to take the brass piece of the bore snake. I'm going to send down in. Now with the 22, you tend to have to push it. The other calibers, it will just fall through, but the 22, you do tend to have to push it. And then you're just going to pull it through. If you remember, I did 3 times on the brush, down in and out 3 times, dipping it 3 times. I do 3 times with the bore snake. Does it need to be 3 times? I don't know. I just do it 3 times. Groups of 3 is what I do. A lot of times when I'm doing shooting, I do groups of 3 as well. That's just my thing. So now I got one more time. I'm gonna pull it down. I don't look in between times. I just do 3 times. On the 3rd time, you saw the brass fell right through it. We know we're clean at this point. So now we can look down that barrel, and that is pretty shiny right there. Yep, that looks good. So we're nice and shiny there. So basically I'm going to sit this to the side, let it continue to dry. Alright, now we're going to go to the slide. Let me put my top back on here. Alright, this is your hops number 9. This is what it looks like. You can buy it in smaller bottles. In all honesty, If you only have 1 or 2 handguns and that's all you do, one of those bottles will last you probably the rest of your life, to be honest. Alright, going to take the slide. We're going to do basically the same thing with the slide as we did the frame. We're going to kind of get it wet basically, get some solvent on it, and we'll take the toothbrush. And just get that toothbrush down in there and get all that dirt and grime. Now the hops number 9 is synthetic safe, so you can spray pretty much anywhere on your gun. Now we're going to get all this. I'm going to spray down in that firing pin hole. And your firing pin, looking at it, is right there. There's a little hole right there your firing pin's in. So spray some down that. You want to get that nice and clean. I do suggest wearing gloves if you have sensitive hands. I've dealt with this stuff for so long and I may get some feedback on that, and that's fine. But back here again, we've got the firing pin right here, so I'm going to spray it down that hole. And you can also actuate the firing pin. You can take you something small and you can kind of make sure that everything's loose down in there. Alright. You may have to push your little safety lock right there. Some of them you don't, some of them you do. But that actually looks pretty good. Just make sure you just get it all clean. And the toothbrush, again, the only thing it does is it loosens the dirt, so you don't have to use as much as your solvent, because that, the solvent does cost money, and using the toothbrush to loosen it up does not. And I'll take a rag and I'll just kind of wipe it to help it along. This is fast drying, so it does dry fairly fast, but for time length of the video, we're going to wipe her down. And then I'm going to sit her to the side and let her dry the rest of the way. Now your rod and spring, sometimes it's kind of hard to get out, but it will just pull off. You don't really have to take it off though. You can just take your cleaner, give it a little spray, take your little rag, wipe it just a little bit, and that's about all you have to do. That rod's good to go. I will put a little bit of lubricant on there in just a second. If you would, just do us a favor and go ahead and like and subscribe. If this has helped you out some, we'd really appreciate that, because it would help a lot of other people. Thanks. Alright, so to lubricate it, we're going to use FM350AW oil spray from Lubriplate. That's a really good oil. And then we're going to use red universal grease right here. I've been using, this is a bigger container, they have smaller containers, but I've been using this for a long time, and you can tell I really haven't used that much. I love both of these, they do really well. So I'm going to take the spray, and you see your little springs and all your internals down here. I'm just going to, I'm right there. This spray is made to work itself around stuff, so it doesn't take a lot at all. Now you've got some, this is part of your trigger here, and it slides back and forth, so I'm going to put it behind that. I'll get back in here, put it behind that again. You're not just all out spraying, you're just barely hitting it. It'll work its way down in there. It's some really, really good stuff. You've got a little moving part here. Spray that, let it work its way down in there. Alright, now you've got your little safety right here. And your safety, you can get back behind the bar right there. And when I spray it out, you can also move it along, and it will work its way in. So don't. A lot of students come to through some of my classes to do some handgun training or instruction, and I'll grab the gun and it'll just be oozing out with grease. It'll just be coming out from everywhere. You don't want that. You want a little bit of oil. I really don't like it running all out everywhere, and that's not good for more than one reason. I'm going to take my little, this is a painter's Q-tip type thing, something to do with painting. I'm not a painter. I'm going to get some grease on here. Now the grease, I'm going to rub down the actual part, the frame and the slide that slides against each other, the rails. I'm going to rub this on very, very lightly. If you see buildup, just move it somewhere else. I actually put it on the barrel part because this barrel gets stuff slid by. Now on this part, you take your finger, you rub it in. You take your finger and the rest of it, rub it in as well. Just keep spreading it out, keep rubbing it around. Alright, we're going to dip a little bit more in. We're going to go right here. This part slides as well, and you can see, you know this part slides because the finishes wore off. So you definitely, if you see anything with the finish wore off, any of that part is going to rub on the slide. They're going to rub together, so you want to get that covered in grease. I like grease better than the oils. I'm not saying the oils don't work, and I'm not saying this is the only stuff you have to use. Use what you got, because there's a lot of different manufacturers out there that make it, and a lot of them work. And a lot of them work well. So don't hold it to what I'm using. You have to have what I'm using, because you don't. But you don't have to have what you're using either. A lot of the other stuff works well. And I've used a lot of them. A whole lot of them, actually. I've had a lot of people, oh, you got to try this. It's the best. It's the best. And this is the best, or that's the best. And honestly, as far as grease and oils are concerned, I have found better than others, but a lot of the new guys coming out, they're no better than what I'm using right now. This has worked really, really well for me. This was turned on to me by another fellow instructor many years ago, and it worked really well. So that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit that frame with my rag, or the feed ramp right here with my rag. I like it to be nice and dry and smooth. So I'm going to make sure, and I'm going to feel it with my finger. Everything feels good. Now this is done. This is ready to go, so I'm going to set it to the side. Looks like I got a little over grease right there, so I'm going to smooth that out with my finger, and we should be good to go. And you can look at it before you put it back together. Just make sure it doesn't have too much grease. Alright, we're going to do the slide now. There's a few things with the slide that we're going to do. One is your little safety button right here, so I'm going to take my oil. Alright, see I got a little oil on top right there, and I'm going to take this little brush thing on the back of it, and I'm going to actuate it so basically it'll fall in, around, and behind that is where I want the oil. Now I also want it behind this extractor bar right here, so we're going to spray it. We'll give it a pretty good spray right there, and then I'm going to come up this way. I'm going to get it in that way as well. Now you can take the bar and you can actually pull it just like this, and that'll actuate it. Alright, so there's a lot of thoughts behind oiling the firing pin. I'm going to leave that up to you if you want to oil it. That's if you clean it every time you shoot it and you oil it, you should be fine. If you do not clean it every time you shoot, you may want to leave it as a dry line, like a dry line bearing, because if you don't clean it, that stuff will gunk up on that oil and it could cause hang fires or a failure to fire at all. I don't oil mine typically because I do clean mine after every time it's shot. Now it gets a lot of rounds through it being shot in a day's worth of shooting, but it does get cleaned and cleaned out after I've shot, so I don't oil it. So I'm going to leave that up to you. Now grease, I'm just going to take my finger and dab it in the grease. I don't have a lot on there, and then I'm just going to rub it just like that. This is going to get most of my top 4 parts, and now the oil and the grease will mix, and that's fine. A lot of the companies now, that's what they're doing. Basically, it's just a heavier oil. It's kind of an oil grease mix. I do grease a lot of the inside, just like this, just a light coat of grease on it. Now let me get my brush, get some grease on it, and we're going to go in the same thing. The parts that slide against, you have little grooves down in here that slide along the frame. I'm going to get them. Got that side. I'm going to come over here. A little too much. Grease right here. And then you can just do that. And now here, I can dip here. Get the bottom right there. I got a little too much over there, so I'm going to transfer it over here. Get down in any groove you see that you don't see grease, and it'll be shiny, so you know it's on there. Anything you see that's not shiny, basically, get you some grease on it. Because this also protects the gun, the coating of the gun, not just the working parts of it. Now I do put a little grease around my little holes right here. And I'm just wiping the front off right here. I did get a little grease on it, and I'll just rub it in, and that's fine. You don't want a lot of grease on your gun because you want to be able to grab a hold of it. I do wax some of my guns, but I do not wax them all. And now this is good to go. Now we'll have to reassemble it and reassemble the gun. If you would, just do us a favor and go ahead and like and subscribe. If this has helped you out some, we'd really appreciate that because it would help a lot of other people. Thanks. Alright, now basically the only thing I do with this the rod is just a little bit of oil. This will work its way, and I'm talking just a little bit down through there, because what'll happen is while you're racking the slide back and forth, the spring will run on it, and you can do it by hand, but it will run even better once you start racking it back and forth. Any excess, just get off with a rag. Alright, now to put it back together, we're going to send the rod. This is the back of the rod. This is the front. So we're going to send the back of the rod down in that hole. So I'm going to put it back down in the hole. Now I'm going to take the slide. Now notice my slide is got some of my greasy handprints on it, so I'm going to wipe my slide back off. You don't want the grease and stuff, and when you put your gun back together, you're going to want to wipe it down. So any grease that's got on anything. Alright, so now we're going to take the front of the spring and put it down in this hole. That's where we're going to start. I'm going to start that front of the spring in that hole. Now I'm going to push this. I'm going to go back, down, and forward. So I'm going to go back. See, it went down. Now I'm going to go forward. Now once I'm forward, I'm going to click that together, rack it, and this trigger won't pull without the magazine in it. It won't actuate, but I know it's together, and that's properly cleaned and lubed. Again, you're going to want to wipe it off once you get it on, because my hands are still a little greasy. Your hands will still be a little greasy unless you just go take off, wash your hands, you know, with some good Dawn to get all the grease off of it. You're going to want to wipe this down because I don't want anything slipping while I'm trying to rack it. We don't need that, especially in a defensive situation. You grab that gun and it's so greasy you can't do anything with it. So just wipe it off. I'm going to get the hammer back here wiped off. And I'm going to call that good to go. Pretty much everything's off of it. I don't see any grease. I don't see any oil running out of it, and that's what we want. So then again, this is the Ruger SR22.